Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/116, and you can email the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or call the voicemail hotline 202-930-1109, and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and a happy May to you. It is a very exciting time of year in bike touring, bike packing, bike camping, whatever you label your thing, whatever your jam is, as we might have said back in the 90s. This is the month that it starts, I think. It's warming up in a lot of places so that it's a little bit more comfortable riding, a little more comfortable at night. Mountain passes are starting to get plowed out, so you're able to do routes that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to do earlier in the spring. It's a great time of year to get out on a bike and do a little bit of bike touring. So that's kind of what this show is all about. 116 episodes and counting, shall we say. I'm really excited to talk about what's going to be coming up this month in May. First of all, if you have not signed up for the Pedalshift newsletter, I intend to get the May edition of the newsletter out probably within the next couple of days, perhaps over the weekend. Depends on kind of timing and whatnot, but I think that it won't come out before this is released. So if you have not signed up for the newsletter, then I definitely invite you to do that. Do that over at pedalshift.net when you get a chance. And it's got a couple of other things in it outside of the podcast. Previews of the upcoming month, a little bit of an opening ramble from me about what I'm doing, maybe some special previewing stuff of what my new tours are going to be, all sorts of good stuff. That's all at Pedalshift.net, so go check that out. Speaking of trying some new things, I have decided to dip my big toe into Reddit lately. So I am I'm going to botch this. I'm u/Pedalshift. I'm sure the nomenclature is all off. I feel like such an old talking about this, but in any event, I'm just sort of chiming in a little bit here and there on the bicycle touring and bike touring forums. I am subscribed to the bike packing forum as well, but I think that since my show and my experience is not so much in bike packing, that I intend to change that over time. The focus of my stuff is going to be in the bicycle touring area, and there's some really interesting stuff, and it's really active. It's at least as active, if not more so, I think, than the Facebook group that is there. There's one big one. I think it's bicycle touring and bike packing over on Facebook. But I like Reddit because it's platform agnostic. You don't have to be I guess you do have to be a member to kind of post stuff, but if you wanted to just go and lurk and learn, you don't need an account over there. So go over and check that out. There's lots. It's amazing how much stuff is out there, and people asking questions and people who are able to chime in with answers and news and all sorts of other stuff. One thing that I posted just the other day, and I got to give a hat tip to Mysterious James for this one, for giving me the heads up that apparently Caltrans, California's transportation department, they have targeted middle end of September to open up Highway 1, which is super exciting. I'll make sure I get the show notes the link to the article in the show notes I think it's from the San Francisco Chronicle, their online version of it. That's really exciting because finally opening up Highway 1 at Big Sur. After that enormous slide, it's put a crimp in a lot of plans. I know a lot of people have kind of snuck through. I've heard that they've got security there now. I mean, I've heard so much conflicting stuff about this. I know people have gotten through. I know people have detoured. I know people have caught rides around it. All sorts of different things. But if you're planning a sort of late summer, kind of early fall tour down the Pacific coast, it's a great time of year to do it. And it does look like that it's going to be good. It looks like it's going to be open for you if you're going to be going south of San Francisco, south of Big Sur, even down towards Santa Barbara, LA, San Diego, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I put that on the Reddit board and it got upvoted a lot, which I understand is a good thing. So yay. I also put it out on all the socials for Pedalshift as well. So hopefully for you Pacific Coast US types, that is going to be useful information for you. And I'm celebrating that. Kind of thinking I might have a September tour and I'm playing around with an idea of going south from San Francisco, but we'll have to see how that all goes. Stay tuned for more on that. But yeah, go check out Reddit. Reddit's kind of fun. I've been enjoying it. I've been dipping my big toe into it. seems like the folks that are there are largely cool, and it's good extra bit of information out there that you can kind of dig around in and learn from. So I think that's really cool. May is going to be changing. I'm not sure exactly what I said on the last episode. I have a Swiss cheese memory, as many of you have figured out by now. The thing that I am saying now is for this moment true, and that is the revised pod schedule for the month of May. Normally, you would be getting an off week right now, and I said that we were going to be doing a best of on the off weeks. Well, that's still true, but obviously I'm here. Hi, new show. The reason is that I got the last conversation with James Rosenberg. Not Mysterious James, other James, the guy who has been part of the beginner series. That's going to take the bulk of this episode. Quite a bit of time. We chatted. He actually came here and sat right across from the table where I currently sit. And it was kind of cool to put a name to the face, or face to the name, I guess it would be. And just have a good long conversation about kind of the last bits before he hopped on the bike. As I sit here right now, he has started his Trans Am ride. So we'll have links in the show notes there. And of course, check out the interview in a few minutes here as well. Really exciting to talk to somebody who's about to embark on their first tour right before they do it, and especially something as big and as special as his ride for Cora, which will be the Trans Am route. Super cool. Great conversation. I hope you stick around for that rather than just listen to me ramble on. So that's this week's show. Hi. Next week's show, we're going to do a new show next week too. And part of that has to do with the fact that this show was originally going to be part of a Katy Trail preview, but I'm realizing that my conversation with James went so long and was such a long, good, awesome, full episode. I didn't want to distract from that. So next week will be the Katy Trail preview episode. So that'll be a new show. The following week, that's going to be when it gets released, and when I would be normally doing the recording is when I'm going to be out on the Katy Trail itself. So we're going to do a best of that week. I still have not figured out which one to put out there. So if you've got ideas, if you're like a huge fan of a particular back episode, or if you're like, hey, I can only get basically in the 20s or 30s right now because my podcatcher doesn't see the older episodes and I want something super old school, throw it my way, Pedalshift at pedalshift.net or ping me on any of the socials. If you have a request, most of them are available. By the way, you can just go to the website / enter number of episode. You'll be able to find it. It's pretty cool that way. So best of show will be that week. And then the following week will be the Thursday after I am done with my ride. So my intention is that's going to be some kind of a follow-up, some kind of a, hey, this was my Katy Trail tour. It may be Tour Journals Volume 10. I'm playing around with a few different things. I'm hoping, I always threaten to do video. This time I think I might actually do more video for the YouTube channel. Maybe even a daily vlog or something like that, but nothing that would be live or close to live. That might be just something I release later. Just because video editing takes a lot more time. It just does. And I'm not as adept in it as I am with audio. Some of you may say, you suck at audio too, Tim, but you know, that's just mean-spiritedness out there. All right. So at any event, we've got, new show now. We got James. We've got a new show next week, the Katy preview, best of the following week. And then the week after that, which will get us well in through the month of May, Tour Journal Volume 10 or some other kind of thing like that. The Katy preview that I'm going to be doing next week is going to outline all of the adjustments I've been making to my itinerary. If you were here for the live show, or if you listened to or watched the replay of the live show, you know that I had kind of an idea of an itinerary, kind of an idea of what I was going to be doing. I've made some adjustments because so many of you have ridden the Katy before and were like, hey, Tim, a slight friendly amendment to your plans. And I've made a few changes, and I'm going to be talking about those next week's episode number 117. So I wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who's been helping out with all of that, especially folks who are local in Missouri. And I'll give them a specific shout out later in that show for helping with the somewhat, I don't want to say tricky, but at least somewhat tricky biking from the trail or to the trail from the suburbs of Kansas City and from St. Louis. It's really interesting how unconnected or how undirectly connected they are. They're quasi-connected, but they're pretty. I would love it if those could improve. And it looks like the state of Missouri has been doing a lot more on all of that, but it would be really cool to get a little bit more infrastructure in between them. But I'm hopeful that I'm going to be putting stuff on Ride with GPS so you can see what my route is. I've done a lot of variations, and I've taken a whole bunch of suggestions from you, the listener, and that's been super, super helpful. So big shout outs to all those folks next week when we do that, including people who have sent me maps and all these other things. It's been really great. It's been a real community kind of thing. So I'm super excited about all that. And it's gotten me really, really, I would have to say, even more excited for this trip. It's just exciting to be able to do a brand new tour and to be able to share that with all of you. So that's going to be coming preview episode next week. But for this episode, we've got our beginner series finale with James Rosenberg. And of course, if you've been following along for the last several months, we've talked with James about once a month or so. We've been sort of compressing that schedule a little bit more as he was getting ready for his big ride. Like I said, he came here. Yorktown is not terribly far from Washington, D.C. He was coming from the New York area and was spending some time in D.C. So it was great. It was timely. Our schedules worked out. And he was able to drop by here to the Studio 1A, as I like to call it, a.k.a. our apartment in D.C. And we sat down for almost an hour talking about all the different things in his kind of final prep run. And it was a really great conversation. Whether you're a beginner or not, I thought this conversation got into some really cool stuff about bike touring, even for you pros out there. I think you could learn something. A thing or two about what he's doing and the questions that he has. And it's always great. This is kind of a yoga thing to kind of do a callback to that episode with my girlfriend, Kimberly. You in yoga, you like to look at things through a beginner's mind. And that's why I think that this has been a great series and one I intend to replicate maybe later on in the future with a new person, a new beginner, perhaps, because James is no longer a beginner. But right before he stopped being a beginner, he sat down at this table here in Washington and, well, hey, let's kick that off. James and the Beginner Series finale. All right, we are sitting in the District of Columbia, and I have James at my table. James, welcome to the Pedalshift Project.
Thanks for having me over, Tim. This is awesome.
This is great. I'm so excited. We were talking before we got on that this is the first time other than Mysterious James or my girlfriend Kimberly that I've had somebody like face to face on a mic. So this is actually kind of cool. It's awesome. I'm going to do the Sprocket podcast style for all of you who listen to that show. We are drinking hyper local DC beers. Not like DC metro area, but actual District of Columbia beers. You've got, which one?
I've got the Peppercorn Saison by 3 Stars Brewing Company, and I gotta say, top notch.
A+. That's one of my favorites. And I've got an IPA by Rate Proper Brewing, which is the only decent IPA in the District of Columbia. Sorry, all other brewers.
It's like the third time I've heard that. He really likes that beer.
No, it's pretty good. It's a good name, Rate Proper. I like that. I think there's like all things in DC, it all comes from some constitutional thing or like an old style tri-corner hat kind of thing going on. But anyways, I digress. Speaking of tri-corner hats, you're going to Yorktown, Virginia in a couple days.
I will be in Yorktown Sunday morning to kick off the Trans Am ride.
Damn. If you are first joining the show here on episode 116 of the Pedalshift Project, this is the final installment of the Beginner Series while James is a pre-bike tour. So we're hoping to hear from James later on, but this is the sort of swan song of the Beginner Series, at least this version of it. So thank you for joining and thank you for coming here. I figured this is sort of open session where you can ask away any questions that you've got. I know you've got a few last minute things as you prepare, and then I've got a whole bunch of things that are sort of a lot of follow-ups and things like that. So we'll just kind of do it that way. So fire away.
Definitely. I think the first question I got for you, Tim, is what's the best way you've saved weight? Like, what have you sent home recently? What have you decided to go without? I spent most of last night packing up my panniers, and I ended up way heavier than I was hoping for.
Yeah.
So just trying to look at any way I can kind of send some stuff back home or cut weight in any regards.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. You're in an interesting dilemma right now because you're sort of on an in-between season right now. I mean, today was okay and a little warm, but tonight's going to be chilly. You know, I mean,
you're going to be cold at night.
You're going to be going through some cold times. So the first thing that I would normally say is your clothes. But for you, I think that that's a tough one because I think you need to make sure that you've got plenty of layers.
Mm-hmm.
You're also going to be going through some mountains in the not too distant future and elevation and all that other kind of stuff. So clothes would be my first kind of choice. I've found through the years that I am always sending back extra layers. Instead of bringing 2 long sleeve warm things like a sweater and a hoodie, just bring one of them. Mm-hmm. Is what I would ordinarily say. So if you find that you've got some duplicative stuff, I'm here to tell you, you think you're going to do laundry or you think you're going to want to change into other things. Trust me, you're going to be wearing the same stuff a lot and everybody does it. It's pretty normal. Some people like to have a rotation where it's sort of like an on day and an off day. That would be the most that I would recommend. Even for a long tour like this, you just end up wearing the same stuff. So
yeah, I've kind of decided. I know I want to be dirty along the way, so I packed just about one of everything. I actually ended up skipping the fleece or the sweatshirt at the end of the day and going with just a down vest that packs really small.
Yes.
So I couldn't fit. I had a big Patagonia fleece. I'm actually wearing it right now.
You're wearing it now, yeah.
And I bought it just for the ride. I was so excited, and then it just packed up so big, and I was like, I can't bring this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. In fact, I'm looking over your shoulder. I see my rain jacket, and then under it is exactly that. It's a down fleece that I got. The Amazon, their brand of down fleece, I got it kind of as a lark because it was relatively inexpensive.
Right.
Holy shit. It is a great buy.
And they're awesome.
Great value. Yeah.
Because they keep you so warm. You wear it under a raincoat because raincoats, they say they breathe. They don't breathe at the end of the day.
Some do. So. Well, I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, we're going to get to that I think later when we talk rain gear. But I think that some are better designed than others.
That's
and
true.
I think that there is a difference between a breathable designed raincoat and one that isn't. Because if you get like some cheap kind of windbreaker, you will roast.
You end up. It's basically rubber. It
yeah,
seems like.
yeah. So I think some brands are better than others, and I have my favorite. We'll talk about that later. But back to your weight question, I think that I have to follow up with some other questions. Did you bring a stove and cook gear?
I did bring a stove, so I brought a stove and 2 pots.
Okay. There's one thing you can get rid of.
Okay, so that was going to be
I would say 1 pot is probably going to be what you would want or need.
So do you have 1 pot and a bowl? Because what I did was 2 pots, no bowls.
I have a really inexpensive cook set that I got. It's made by Stanley, the thermos company.
Okay.
And it's one kind of tall pot. It's a little bit bigger. It's like kind of like a larger than a can of beer.
Okay.
I don't remember how many ounces it holds, maybe 24 or 32 ounces. It's actually pretty good, but it's tall. Inside of it are 2 insulated plastic cups, and those work for bowls. They work for drinks and things like that. That is my entire cook set, and a plastic spork.
Okay.
That I found to work really well. It depends on what you've got. I don't know which pot you would want. Probably send back the bigger pot. It would be my best guess. You'll be surprised at how little you need a big pot.
Okay.
I'm now getting 100,000 people. I don't have 100,000 listeners. Let's pretend that I have 100,000 listeners who are all screaming at their earbuds going, dude, no, I'm a gourmet cooking chef.
I'm not a gourmet cook in a real kitchen. It's not going to get better on a campsite.
I think that, your number one thing that you're going to be doing is boiling water for the most part. I don't know if you've put a ton of thought into it. Like, are you going to be making soups and stuff like that and planning to wash it out and all that other stuff? I talked about this in a recent episode. Right. I tend not to like to cook food within my pot. I tend to do the freezer bag cooking technique, and I just boil water. It's just a lot faster, a lot cleaner, and you can kind of get in and out. So that would be another place where I would say that you could save weight. Toolkit. Are you bringing like a lot of tools?
No.
Okay, you're pretty slim down
I'm pretty good on tools. I had originally been... As I was packing up, I had like little notes like, don't forget this, don't forget that. And one of them was like a good wrench. Yeah. And I was about to grab my dad's. He's got this like really sturdy, great adjustable wrench. And then I was like, no, like I just don't need that.
I have like a $1 Walmart little adjustable wrench that I use to take my pedals on and off. It's not great, but it works and it's functional and it's really light and easy. That's kind of the burliest tool that's like non-specific for biking that I bring.
And that's the thing is I realized like I don't need to worry about putting my pedals on at the beginning because I'm driving the bike down. So it's sitting on a rack right now.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
On the way home, I'll have to worry about taking pedals off and packing it up and everything. but I'm going to worry about that later. So I ended up not even worrying about the wrench.
On more than one occasion, I've gone to a local bike shop, and they've been super happy to help take a pedal off. So yeah, maybe you don't need those, especially if you don't think that you're going to need to take the pedals off for any other type of reason.
I can't see
any. It's unlikely. Yeah, so tools. A quick anecdote. So, listeners of the show from a million years ago may remember Nathan, and so long ago I can't remember his last name. But he was like a real wrench. He was a real mechanic kind of guy, and he brought so many tools. He had like chain whips and stuff. Like he could do full repairs, and he needed to on this particular bike. I remember because he was always futzing and doing all sorts of things with it. But that was a lot of gear, and I think he really suffered. I think and ended up sending a lot of the tools home. I think to Michigan, if I recall correctly. This is a few years back. So, but yeah, tools are another thing. I'm just trying to think other places where you can find some savings in weight. You're probably bringing more of everything than you need.
Right. That's definitely something that I agree with. I'm going to go through the first week, see what I'm actually using, see what's been sitting on the bottom of the pannier the whole time, and whatever that is, it's getting up and it's getting legs, it's going home.
I think I've talked about this on the show before. There's these guys called the minimalists. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They talk about this thing called a packing party. It's a way to sort of like get rid of stuff that you don't need. You literally pack up your entire home, and then you live out of the boxes. And the only thing after a couple of weeks, you realize you only need a few things. Right. And then you're already packed up with the rest of the stuff. So you can either donate it, ship it, sell it, whatever you need to do. The same thing is true with bike touring. I think that if you find you're not using something, unless it's there, like a first aid kit, don't send your first aid kit home because you're going to need it at some point. I hope you don't, but it's good to have.
Gotta have that one.
I always bring, like a whole series of things for like a road rash if I end up taking a spill and stuff like that. And I've never had to use it, but I'm really glad I've got it. It's
so much better to have and not need than not have and need.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can kind of irrigate it and get the grit out, but it's nice to have something that you can cover up if you need to. So, books, I would say go with electronic if you can. A lot of people bring one heavy thing. Like, I think that the one thing that I always say is you're allowed, you can do whatever you want, but I allow myself, maybe I should use I statements. Yes. I allow myself one sort of luxury piece of nonsense. Frequently that'll be, I'll bring my hammock. Now my hammock, rolls up the size of a softball, so it's really not that big of a deal. My very first camping stove was one of those Coleman style ones that take those 1 pound.
Oh, wow.
Ones.
Yeah.
Now, people used to make fun of me all the time for it because, that container is enormous.
It's big.
But I'll tell you, man, it breathes like a dragon, man. That boiled water in such a little time. But eventually I figured, I do want to save the weight and the bulk and stuff like that. So you'll find, you'll minimize as you go along.
So I actually want to quickly bring it back to the piece you brought up about the hammock. So my girlfriend had given me a hammock for my birthday a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm bringing it. I gotta bring it. It's in my bag right now, and that's kind of top of the list on what I'm thinking about sending home. I really want to use it. I just don't know about it. Takes up a decent amount of space between the hammock and the straps. And then I have a tarp for it, which I'm thinking is probably the first thing to come out. I don't know if that's necessary because I've got a tent as well. So if it's chance of rain, my thought would be tent. If it's clear, I can kind of break out the hammock tarpless.
Yeah. I can't say that I haven't done the same thing where I've brought all of the above.
Okay.
I tend to like to sleep. Have you slept in the hammock before?
I've taken a nap in it the other day. That's about it.
Sleeping in a hammock is a different vibe, and I find I will get freezing in the middle of summer in a hammock.
Right.
If you put your pad down and some other things, I just find that I don't get a great night's sleep. I have done it before, but I don't love it. So that's one thing that I would say. The second thing is there is a lot to be said about after a day in the saddle, especially a hot, crazy ass day, to be able to get back, get reclined and get your feet up above your heart and all that other kind of stuff. It just makes a huge, huge difference.
Right.
So it's a luxury item, but I agree. It's like one of those things you're sort of like,
it's like,
not
I
so
want
sure
to,
about.
I just don't know.
The tarp is an interesting one. I know a lot of people who always bring a tarp with them, whether they have a tent or not, and because it can be handy. You can do all sorts of different things with it, and
it's not that heavy at the end of the day. You're like,
heavy.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one that could potentially be. You may find, I'm really not using it. It's just It's just on the bottom of my, it's on the rack, and all it does is it serves to keep the mud from hitting and stuff, But that can be nice too. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what other listeners might have for ideas on how to shave weight, but I think that your idea of go out and ride and then see what you're not using over the course of the first week, keeping in mind that there's going to be things that you don't use, like cold weather stuff.
Like cold weather stuff, rain gear, I'm not going to even think about touching for probably even like a full month. Just make sure I've gotten to all the different types of conditions before I even would consider sending some of that stuff home. Rain gear probably stays no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
But it's this sort of luxury stuff that I want to see. Like, hey, am I really using this? Do I need that second pot? Do I need the tarp?
Yeah.
And I'm lucky my parents are actually driving me down tomorrow.
That's helpful.
So that second pot's going to be sitting in the backseat of their car as they're driving back home.
Yeah, that's also some bulk too, so you may find that really helps out. Are you bringing a computer and stuff like that too?
I've got a tablet. Because part of the ride, again, it has that charity piece, so I'm trying to do a blog every day.
Yep.
And a blog on a phone just kind of sucks.
It's a little rough. It's doable, but it's a little rough.
Exactly.
So. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I think you may be better off than you think you are.
Okay.
But see how it goes. I'm curious. I'm curious what you end up.
I'm probably gonna end up emailing you like, I just shipped everything home.
Yeah, everything's going on.
I just have a bike.
That's the other great thing is that you're going to be going by so many small town post offices, and they all have those if it fits ships boxes, and they're a great value for stuff like this. So.
Exactly. And the fourth day I think it is that I'll be out is Charlottesville. Perfect. One of my good friends lives in Charlottesville. Crashing on his couch. Worst comes to worst, he's driving me to the post office, and I'm shipping a bunch of stuff home.
That's great. That's a good.
That's kind of my big plan is. Get to Charlottesville, make sure the camping stuff is as good as I think it is. A lot of it is pretty old. It's been in my family for a while. We used it when we were kids, and I'm bringing it back out now.
Gotcha.
A lot of it maybe needs to be replaced. A lot of it needs to be shipped home maybe. That's going to be my first really hey, let's go through, let's check everything.
Yeah. You may find that's part of the issue is that sometimes, because I started that way too, I used existing gear, and it's bulkier and it's heavier because, I had a sleeping bag that was like, 20 years old, and just technology has changed,
That's my concern. The sleeping bag is the one that's getting me. It's huge also. Yep. It does not pack down small.
Let me throw something at you, is that you may want to consider upgrading that bag. If you've got the funds for it, you can get, even on Amazon, the down bag that I got was $99.
Really?
And it's totally fine.
Okay.
It's rated down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. I've really liked it. It's made by a company called Hike and Bike, but with like Y's.
Of course, they got it.
Because, right. Yeah. I've been really pretty happy with it, and it works pretty well. And man, what a difference in terms of the packing on that.
Okay.
You're going to need something that rates that low, because you're going to need some cold weather.
Especially at the beginning.
Exactly. What are you using for a pad?
So I've got an old Thermarest pad.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are pretty bulky too.
Yeah.
Another thing, technology, that the inflatable ones that you physically blow up. I've just upgraded a second time to another inflatable. After years of great service on REI one, I just went to one of their newer versions.
Yeah, so this is an older inflatable one.
I probably have one in my closet that I pull out for Belle Star, because she likes her own. Because she's a little princess, right? But
I was in an REI the other day, just kind of picking up the last couple things. Like I wanted to get like a lightweight spork that I had seen. It was like $2. I was like, yeah, I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to get that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I was looking at the sleeping pads and kind of like thinking back to the one I have at home, and then looking at these ones, and I was like, damn, mine is old.
Yeah, not to spend a couple $100 for you, but if you got that hike and bike bag for $90, I think they're still $99.
Okay.
You could get that shipped to your buddy's place in Charlottesville.
That's what I'm thinking.
And then the REI, their new inflatable pads are really great. I've had a good experience with it. I've only been on it a few times, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been good. Much lighter, much smaller. All sorts of different things that you can do. If you did those two things, I think that
could save a lot of
it's bulk.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bulk more than weight for a lot of these things, but yeah.
But yeah, both of those things. I guess the sleeping pad is currently sitting on the rack. I've got it wrapped around the tent.
Right.
But the bag is sitting in one of the panniers, and it's taken up the majority of that bag.
Yeah. Well, I think we a few ideas. Those two things may be the more primary things for you.
I'm pretty interested right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'll show you offline. I will show you the link, and I'll put a link in the show notes for everybody else. Because like I said, that the sleeping bag, I've talked about it on the show before. I think I like it enough. I've used it quite a bit.
Okay.
It's great in the winter. Summer, it's warm. You may be on top of it the whole time, but you can always
I'd rather that.
You can always ship that home, or and find something, a sleeping bag liner even. Those are pretty cheap too. And
I picked up one of those very cheap, and it takes up no space. It weighs really nothing. I don't think, at least.
Yeah,
you're gonna tell me I'm wrong.
For your summer stuff, and then use both of them together for colder weather. So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
cool. Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Good. What else is on your list?
So
now that we've solved your weed problem, right?
that should do it. That was definitely the big one. The second one that I had was mostly about kind of like warm showers, and just kind of like the basic etiquette around it. So I've never used it. I'm excited. I've got my first 2 bookings, we'll call them, coming up.
Yeah.
The second and third night of the trip. But like these ones I booked pretty far in advance, and I posted a similar question actually online asking just about like how far in advance do you typically book a warm showers? What happens if you're falling a little bit off schedule? Just generally, how does it work?
It's a great question. Now, I will also admit to you, and I did an episode maybe in the teens or less. I think it was titled "Why I'm Lukewarm on Warm Showers." I actually have never used it before.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people who have, so I can give at least a few pointers based on what I know about it. Number one rule is just communication.
Right.
I would say if you think that if you've got a booking and you feel like you might not make it, or there's any information that might be helpful for them, just let those folks know. I mean, they're opening their homes to you and whatnot.
Of course.
I would say just in terms of the normal kind of vibe and etiquette, everyone is different, but there are some, I would say that everybody who is opening their doors to you kind of want to talk to you for a little bit,
right? Of course.
And this is my problem, because at the end of the day, sometimes the last thing I want to do is just be like, tell my story.
Yeah, so here's why I'm biking.
Exactly.
Yes, the gear weighs 45 pounds. Gotcha.
But, there are days when I've read, Carrie, who I interviewed for this past week's show that just came out yesterday as we're sitting here. She had herself saved a few times, at least in the run of the pod so far for her, from warm showers. And that is a very typical story that people will drive you up and over a mountain pass, or will come and pick you up, or some things like that. So I think that there's a ton of great value that comes in this interaction, right? It's like you're trading stories, and they're giving you a place to stay and a shower and feed you sometimes and all that. So, I mean, I think showing gratitude is another huge piece of it as well.
Definitely.
It's interesting. It's something that I've thought about doing, just because I know it's a huge piece of a lot of people's bike touring, and because I haven't done it, I can't really represent it too well on the show. So you even asking me this question, I feel like, well, I've never done it. So I would also say ask the warm showers hosts as well the same question. Say, hey, do you have any hey, this is my first time, my second time, my third time. Do you have any recommendations because the idea is that if you open up your home, you've also probably been hosted as well. It's usually that way in the order that you're doing it, where you go out and then eventually someday you host.
And
yourself.
If you read all the host bios, they're all like, "Yeah, did the Trans Am in 1992. Like, want to hear your story?" Or thinking about doing my next tour. Warm showers really saved me when I was in XYZ state.
Exactly.
So it's really cool. I am definitely excited to hear their stories, but to your point, I get it. Like, there's going to be some days I'm going to get there and be like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Today it was supposed to be a short day. It was, 45 miles, but damn, that hill was hard.
Yep.
Or the wind was just against me.
Yep.
And
have the expectation of, sort of interacting when it's not clear that you may. But here's the other thing. Like, you could be in a campground and there could be some chatty person there who wants to talk you up, and you're just like, I'm going. So it can happen anywhere. And because you are gratitude, that's just that's your hashtag, man, going into any of these places. Gratitude.
I love
because
it.
They're doing something cool for you. And I love that this thing exists. And at some point I'm going to, get get my attitude in check and try it out, just because I think it's a really cool thing. And it's also something that I hope to be able to do sometime myself.
Right.
Here in DC, we don't really, you're in our space right now. Not a lot of space.
Tight.
it's 600 square feet here, right?
But a beautiful 600 square feet, let me add.
My girlfriend will probably be very happy to hear that. But my place in West Virginia is not far off of the C&O. Now, it's an illegal river crossing and a few other things, but, I've thought about opening it up potentially at some point, if I was spending more time there.
Right.
So anyways, yes, warm showers. That's good. Good question. Good resource. And I'll be curious to hear your experiences with it.
Yeah. I think the third and kind of last big question that I had is, have you had somebody join you midway through the tour for a section? And the reason I bring that up is my father's going to join me for actually about 1,000 miles in the middle of it, which I'm super excited for. It's kind of like a really cool father-son thing that we're doing. So I'm pumped about that, but we're figuring out logistics kind of like Mad Men right now.
Yeah.
He's never bike toured. I've never bike toured. We know he's going to fly into Denver, because the trail goes through Breckenridge, which is just outside of Denver. Meet me there. But we're, I guess, trying to figure out exactly how that works, And I was just curious, have you done it? And if you could just talk about that experience a little bit, especially because, I'll have been riding for a month and a half. I'll be in probably my optimal cycling shape at that point.
Yeah, and your dad will presumably not be
exactly
in the same shape.
He's going to be training, and let me tell you, the man is an athlete. He is way more athletic than me, runs all the time, has already started doing a bunch of long bike rides.
Right on.
But I don't think there's any real substitute, as we've talked about previously, for
the only prep for bike touring is bike touring.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, there's lots of people screaming in the earbuds right now saying, no, cross training. Okay. Yeah, I've done this before a few times. I've met up with Mysterious James, who comes up all the time in our discussions, not just because your name is James too. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was a time he was doing the whole Pacific Coast, and I met him in Oregon for a stretch. I think he'll have to remind me if I got this wrong, but I've certainly done bike tours with him where he's biked a certain section ahead of me. And then we've met and we biked a little bit, and often he would continue on. Right. Because I only had maybe a couple of weeks. I could do Portland to San Francisco, and he ended up going all the way down the rest of the coast. So it's doable. It's just a question of sort of hitting the mark. And, your situation is the harder part. It's sort of like you need to be able to get to Breckenridge or Denver or wherever you two are planning on meeting on a particular day. Right. But that, frankly, that's something that within about a week or so, you can usually get your mileage figured out, even a couple of days, because, doing a century would kind of suck if you had to do it to kind of catch up or something like that. But
it's doable.
It's doable.
That's actually a really fair point.
If it's the difference between, meeting your dad on time or not, you're going to do it. Right. So I don't think it's that much of a challenge, but it's something to be mindful of as you're getting closer. So if you've got a target date, and he probably has maybe non-refundable tickets on a flight, and he's like, I'm going to be there on such and such a date. You just need to kind of, as you're getting closer, let's say you're doing, roughly average about 60, 70 miles a day, that's about a little over 400 miles a week. So, as you start kind of getting into your rhythm, and knowing how things are going, that's gonna be something that you can pretty easily figure out. And then just make sure that you leave yourself a little window of opportunity. You can always do a fast forward if you need to. I know you don't want to do that, but that's
but if worst comes to worst,
if you have to, you have to.
And what I'm trying to convince my parents to do is have both my mom and my dad go out to Denver and do a little vacation that way. That maybe it'll be a 3-day vacation, maybe it'll be a 6-day vacation.
I see. Yeah,
try and convince them that if they get out there a little earlier, maybe that's good, and it allows a little bit of breathing room. But I had been thinking about I'm gonna be doing 60 miles a day, and what happens if I fall back a little bit? But to your point, I just do 70 one day. I do 80 one day.
Exactly. And by then, you'll be in a rhythm, and you'll just be like, all right, I'm 420 miles away. Oh, boom, 7 days, no problem. Right. I think that you're going to get into a rhythm a lot quicker than I think that you may think at this point. Okay. It doesn't take long. It usually takes me a few days. I think within a week or two, you're going to just be like, okay, What's this day look like? You know, and then you're just going to get up. You're going to have your routine down, and everything that you used to do a couple of weeks when you started, where you're like very meticulous about how you pack your tent and you make a coffee in the morning or whatever. You know, all that shit goes out the window. It's really funny how streamlined you end up getting.
That's awesome. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is just seeing like what happens. What do I do in 2 weeks that like right now I'm like, oh, I would never do this. And then in 2 weeks, I'm like, no, that's exactly what I'm going to do every day.
Every morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to check my bike and I'm going to lube my chain and all this other stuff. And now, by 2 week point, you're going to be like,
I haven't lubed my chain in a week and a half.
Exactly. That's how I am, man. It's worst bike tourist ever. So, anyways, yeah, I think that's it. And as far as the riding part, you know what? You ride your ride, right? You know, and so if you need to go ahead of your dad for a little bit, so be it. Just to be like, okay, right. I'm taking this hill faster than you. Don't worry about it. Don't, make sure that he doesn't feel any pressure, because I've been the dude behind before. I'm always the dude behind. And, there's a point where you're just like, you feel like you've got some pressure, and it's just like, if you just say,
as long as we get there,
we don't need to ride together to ride together. You know what I mean?
So that's what I've been talking to him about a little bit, is I had talked to the guys who had done, the ride that I'm doing a couple years ago, and they're 3 people of very different cycling abilities. And one of the things that they had said was, hey, if you're going to ride with somebody, that means you're camping with them the night before and you're camping with them the night after.
100% agree.
If you ride anywhere in between, that's just a cherry on top.
Yeah.
So I talked to my dad about that, and he actually was happy to hear that, because he was like, hey, you're going to be, and let's hope, you're going to be in really good shape. So I don't want to hold you back. And he was nervous about even joining the ride. So I think just me saying like, hey, fall back a little bit. I don't care. You're not holding me up. I'm not trying to speed you up. Yeah. Let's just ride what we want to do. I think
if you're together and you're going up a pass, and you guys will be going up a pass around then.
1 or 2.
Say, all right, I'll meet you at the top. If it takes you an extra hour, I'm just going to sit and be tapping away. I'm going to write a blog post. Don't worry about it.
Eat my jelly beans. Like, I've got stuff I can do.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell them, if you get a flat and it takes you an extra half hour, don't worry about it. Right. It's cool. That's how this works. And
send me a text. Let me know you're stopping to fix a flat.
Exactly. Setting expectations. I've heard people carrying 2-way radios, and apparently the like walkie-talkies, they go like quite a distance.
They're crazy now.
Yeah, and you may feel like that you're like either way behind or way ahead, but chances are you're probably about a mile or 2.
In the grand proximity of things, you're not that far.
You're not that far. So that's another possibility, just to add weight to your gear.
I'm actually looking for more weight, so I appreciate
you're looking for more things, but cell phone signals don't exist everywhere.
Right.
That's just fair. One of the things to think about. But yeah. Cool. I think that's exactly the right attitude. It's about the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and the in between. If you ride together, if you like to ride together, I'll be honest, I don't like riding with people. I don't, there's so many great rides, like, the group rides in DC and New York and everywhere. I never go on them because I don't like, bicycling to me is a very me internal thing. Everything else I love, I'm an extrovert. I like talking to people in camp and all that other kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I think for most people, I would not want them riding next to me for most of the ride, but my dad and I have done a lot of sports together, both mountain biking, skiing, and all the above, where we'll be next to each other, but we're not going to force the other one to talk the whole time.
I feel you.
And that's my dream riding partner, where there's somebody there I can look over, give them a smile, and then I can get back to whatever's going on upstairs.
I think that's great, and I think it's really awesome that your dad's going to join you. I think it's a really cool bonding thing. Mm-hmm. It's cool to have a companion for 1,000 miles.
That's a long way.
That's a big chunk. He's going all the way to the West Coast with you. Is that?
No. So he's going to go from, of course, now I'm blanking on the name. Breckenridge. Sorry. Right. Breckenridge up to Missoula. So he's going to do the most beautiful, probably hardest stretch. Or not hardest, but...
it's a lot of people say that it's challenging, but not nearly as hard as we talked about this before, the Ozarks and the Appalachians as well. Those are a lot harder. So it's a big, long climb in any of those passes, but it's not nearly as crazy.
But at a reasonable grade.
Yeah, and it's having one long climb is a lot easier than having 30 up and downs.
Right.
You'll
I believe that.
You'll find out, man. Cool. All right. Well, I have a few questions for you because of follow-ups and stuff like that.
Fire when ready.
Let's see. My first one was, what was the last piece of gear that you left behind, just to go back into our first section?
Yeah.
What have you paired out?
I'd say the last thing that I left behind was this morning. I woke up And I don't know why, but I woke up and the first thing I did was I got out of my bed. I walked downstairs where my bag was. I didn't like walk past my mother. I didn't like say good morning or anything. I was like, I'm on a mission right now. I reached in my bag, pulled out the sweatpants, and walked back upstairs. I was like, you know what? I got a pair of biking tights. If I'm cold, I'm going to put those on. I don't need the repetitive sweats.
Well done. Well done. Repetitive clothing is the first to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So the sweats, I was going to bring 2 off the bike t-shirts. Nixed the second one.
Good. Good. One bit of off the bike stuff is good.
Exactly.
I got always wash them.
A pair of jeans, a shirt, and wool socks. I'm trying to decide if the socks stay or go.
I would say the socks before the jeans, believe it or not.
The socks stay over the jeans?
Yeah, I ride in kind of a lightweight pant that's zippable into shorts, which is
like those hiking,
super
whatever.
hot. Like I'm definitely a fashion plate in that thing. But it's like it works, and they dry really quick, they wash really quick, and that's the only pair of pants that I have.
Okay.
I do not look cool, but
that's not what cyclotouring's about.
Dude, there's nothing cool about the gear. I try to wear clothes that I would normally wear, except when it's sort of like a modified version of quote unquote real clothes. It's like it's like hiking clothes, right. Kind of a thing. But I used to bring jeans because I was like, oh, when I'm in San Francisco, I want to wear jeans and like look like a normal human. And I still sort of lean that way. But what I do is I'll often ship them because if I have a friend who lives in San Francisco, right. I can ship them ahead. You won't use your jeans as often as you think.
Okay.
But everyone's different. You know, it's like it's funny because I don't want to like bike-splain to people. You'll find it, and that might be one of those things that you're like, okay, if it ends up at the bottom of your pannier and you don't end up using it,
that's definitely one of the things I'm thinking of. But yeah, my dad had actually recommended I get a pair of hiking pants, and I was like, nah, I don't know. I don't want to wear those. Those are goofy.
Those are super nerdy, and only old people wear them. Dude, they're the best.
Yeah, we'll see.
Especially the ones that zip off into shorts, because then you're like,
that's when you're really cool.
Oh, yeah, they look hot, man.
That's when you can sit on a bar stool and turn from long pants to shorts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. Okay. Those are good. They're good. I bought a second pair just this year. Have you ridden with a full load yet?
So I rode with 3/4 of a load. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be the full load. I was like, I'm just missing like a couple shirts and things. Like, this is perfect. Put everything on, did a 50-mile bike ride. Sorry, I'm laughing. The dog needed
Mookie
a big
is making some noises here.
So my dad and I went out for a 50-mile ride. Decent elevation. It was like 2,500 feet gained. And I was tired by the end, but I woke up in the morning feeling good.
Good.
So that was when I'd been kind of nervous for a little bit. I'm like, hey, I've been training, but I'm not in tip-top shape, I'll be honest. But I did that. I woke up. I felt pretty good, and I was like, all right, I can do this.
How did the bike handle? It probably felt different, I assume.
Honestly, so it felt different when I was going slowly.
Mm-hmm.
But the second I got up to maybe 7-8 miles an hour, it handled incredibly. Gotcha. Like, you would have thought there was nothing on there.
A lot of people describe that it's like riding on rails. That it feels very... That it's very stable. If you're full... If you're rocking 2 panniers, not 4, right?
I'm on 4.
Oh, you're on 4. Okay,
yeah.
That's what I think it feels very stable, but it's different, and it's funny how different it feels. So I'm glad you did it.
So hard. So I was pretty good biking. There's starting and stopping. I was, a little uneasy, but nothing even close to a problem. Walking my bicycle, I could not do. It was just tipping over left, and then I'd fix it, and all of a sudden it would fall over right. That I struggled with big time.
Yeah. And if you don't have a kickstand or anything like that,
nothing.
Most touring bikes don't have one. And so it's a challenge. That's the number one thing. You're like, what the hell do I do with this thing?
Yeah.
You'll learn to lean it on walls and ice machines and things like that. So
exactly.
It's all good. We talked about hills last time. You just talked about you did a ride. Do you feel pretty good about the hill work that you've been doing?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I think I've been doing 2 different types of hills. So my parents live out in Westchester, as we talked about, and one hill that I've done is I biked from my house down to the bike path, the local bike path, and into the city. And our town is on top of a hill, and the town that the bike path is in is on top of a hill. However, there's a big valley in between. So it's a pretty steep downhill, you're straight for a while, and then it's a super steep uphill.
Okay, good.
And I've been doing that a couple times, not fully loaded, but with 2 pretty heavy panniers on the back.
Good.
And it kicked my ass, to be completely honest. But, you feel yourself getting a little better each time. By the time you get to the top, you've just got that much more left in the tank. So I felt pretty good about those. Definitely, by the time you get to the top, you stop, you grab a little bit of water, and you're like, all right, I'm good to go now. And then the other was just on the bike path. There's a couple places where it's, a mile probably of just uphill. It's not steep, but it just keeps going.
Yeah, those are the ones that get you. When you can't coast.
Exactly.
There's a lot of folks that say that flats are their favorite, and like flats to me may as well be hills, because if you have to constantly pedal and you don't get a lot of chance to be able to coast, especially when you've got like maybe a half degree or a 1 degree incline.
That's what I hate the most is when it doesn't look like you're on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
You look like you're going flat, and maybe like, I don't know if it's just me, but the hills plays tricks on me.
Oh, yeah.
I always think I'm going uphill or downhill, and it turns out I'm not.
Yep.
But when it looks like you're going downhill a little bit, and all of a sudden you're pedaling harder and you're shifting down a gear, and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like that made me frustrated. That was the mental game that I had to get over.
Wind will be there sometimes and you don't realize it, and then sometimes you're just more fatigued.
Right.
And so, if you need to downshift, don't let it get in your head, oh, I'm being a wuss or whatever, just let your body and let what you're feeling dictate what gear you're in. And if you slow down, you slow down. That's
right.
just, that's what I would say. But I'm glad a lot of people jump into bike touring having done, like I described, lots of flats, lots of hours in the saddle, but never really tackling hills. And then the first time you get on a hill and you're like, so
this is what they were talking about.
Yeah. So good. I'm glad you did.
I'm a little better than that. I probably should have done a little bit more, but you can always prepare more. So I feel like I'm ready to go.
I think you're in good shape. Mentally, I think it's a big deal. Kentucky, dogs. Do you have a strategy?
That is something... No, it's a short answer.
Okay.
What's your recommendation?
I'm going to do a whole episode on this, but I'll give you sort of the Cliff's Notes on this. Obviously, you see I live with vicious dogs.
They're terrifying.
They're terrifying dogs. So most dogs are just crazy in terms of they're reacting to something that's out of the ordinary. And there's nothing more out of the ordinary. Even if they live on the freaking Trans-America Trail.
They all want to jump. I've noticed that so far.
You're in their territory. This is how they react. So I have a much lighter touch when it comes to dealing with dogs. I know there are a lot of people who are just terrified by them, insist that they're attacking them and all that other stuff. And I have no reason to say no to that.
Right.
A couple of things. Stern, low voice, booming voice, no. Just that can be a really big thing. If you're feeling like a dog is a lot more aggressive, though, a squirt from your water bottle is another possibility. There are a lot of people who carry like mace and this other stuff. I would never do that, even to the worst dog out there.
That's the thing.
I understand why people would do that, though. I don't have the experience of having been attacked by a dog or been bitten by a dog, so I understand. My girlfriend works with a woman who is terrified of our pugs because she's had. I know, and it's funny, but not. When I see the terror, like when I see the terror in her, like we'll drive over to her place to drop off some stuff for her business. And, she'll open the door and see the dog is in the car. The dogs are in the car, and just the sheer terror. So I understand that for some people, it's a real thing. So I would never say, oh, you're a bad person if you carry dog mace or whatever. I just think that find what works for you, but also understand that this is something that's pretty typical, especially in Kentucky, that I hear from Trans Am riders. Not everyone, but a lot of them. I think it's something, just have a strategy and a thought about it.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend who loves dogs more than like anybody I ever met, she was like, hey, you got to get mace.
Interesting, and yeah.
I was like, I want to, but at the same time, like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's going to be a little bit of talking to people along the way, kind of seeing what they're doing. And part of it's going to be getting into Kentucky and seeing what I'm actually dealing with. Someone can tell you about, there are these dogs and they bark at you, they run, they jump at you. And I can't picture it right now, to be completely honest. That's the one thing that I still can't really imagine.
I think knowing that that's a likelihood to happen to you somewhere in America, whether it's Kentucky or elsewhere.
That's true.
I think just knowing that that's something that's like, so when it happens, it's not the shock and terror moment for you. But it's still it's gonna take you by surprise.
Oh,
so,
big time.
Yeah. There's a place in West Virginia near where my cabin is that, every time I go down to the Potomac to do my totally legal crossing on the CSX bridge, totally legal. Because I wouldn't cross on a CSX bridge. That
Obviously
would be wrong.
not.
That would be wrong and illegal and trespassing. But there's a dog there that's every time and always comes out after me.
Yep.
And so I've just gotten to the point where it's like, I expect it now. But the first time that happened, freaked me out because I wasn't expecting it. So if you've got some expectations that it's going to happen,
and I think
good.
Just to your points about stern words of no and a little bit of spray water. So the first time when it happens, I've got a plan.
Yeah.
And then from there, I can see, is this the right plan or do I got to adapt? Do I need...
And you know what? I would never begrudge somebody who doesn't feel safe. Safety is one of those things, and feeling unsafe is a drag. So if you feel safer having some kind of mace or something like that, so long as it's legal, because I know it's illegal in some places or some elements of it, like some types of it is illegal.
Right.
So anyways, I'm do some research on that. I'm sure it's going to be available for you in different places. So dogs, awesome. Glad we talked. Good talk.
Yes, appreciate that.
We talked about stove and cooking. You're planning on doing a little bit of cooking. I think we can kind of bypass that. We feel good about that. Rain gear.
Rain gear.
We talked offline a little bit about rain gear. What'd you end up choosing, and what's your strategy there?
Definitely. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, I had emailed Tim maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago as I was just, making sure I had everything that I needed, and I said, hey, what do I need? Do I need rain pants? Because I don't want to get rain pants. Those seem silly. And
not as cool as those zip out
man,
pants.
I'm trying to look good out there.
Right.
And Tim had said, it's kind of up to you. There's a bunch of different options. I think you had recommended on a hot summer day, just, wearing bike shorts and going with it. You're going to get cool and that'll feel good.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing was I got a pair of bicycle tights.
Okay.
So no rain pants, just bicycle tights. And I tried them out the other day, in the rain. It was a nasty, nasty day. The highway near me kind of flooded. It wasn't pouring at any point, but it was just a constant, steady rain. And I felt great.
Right.
I had the showers pass socks that you recommended.
Nice. Those things are burly, man.
They were crazy.
Yeah.
I got home and I was like, yeah, no, my feet are completely dry. I took them off and like a puddle fell out. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Those are great. I love them.
That was unreal. I didn't think that, no offense, I didn't really believe you when you were saying how good they were.
They're true waterproof, man.
They were great.
Yeah.
So you put those together with the really tight, kind of breathable leggings, which made me look a bit like a yoga mom, but that's fine.
It's all good, man.
And I felt great on the bottom half. And then on the top half, I've got a raincoat I had bought for hiking a couple years ago. A Mountain Hardwear raincoat. It's one of those that, again, it claims to be really breathable. I just have a hard time believing anything's breathable that keeps water off of you.
Yeah.
So I definitely got a little warm in it, but I'd rather be warm than cold. And it's one of those things that if it's raining, you unzip a little bit, get wet from the rain, all of a sudden you're cold, you zip it back up and you're warm and are regulated.
You're going to be constantly doing that anyways in a lot of places, especially if you're going up hills or down hills and whatnot. The one thing about a bicycle specific jacket, like the Showers Pass one that I have, is the pit zips and things like that. They're designed for, being in a position that's sort of down.
Right.
There is, I used to think that you could get away with rain gear that was built for hiking, for biking. I think you can. I do think that there's something to be said about bicycle specific ones.
Interesting.
I swear by Showers Pass. They're a good company that I've been happy to spend money on their stuff, and it's good quality and it lasts.
Okay, that's good to hear, because their stuff wasn't as cheap as I was hoping.
It's not. And those socks are ridiculous, but they work really well. I rode in Washington last month. Was it last month? Was it 2 months ago? Anyways, when it was cold and wet, I had sandals, biking sandals. So not even like full coverage on the shoes.
Right.
And those waterproof socks, totally fine. Feet were dry the whole time.
I believe it.
They're great. Last but not least, you, believe it or not, you're spending all of this time planning for the biking part, but there's actually a little bit of downtime in camp. What, other than when you're with your dad hanging out, what do you plan to do for that downtime? Are you a reader? Are you got your blog posts? What are you planning on doing?
Three things in response to that, I think. I think the first one is, as you mentioned, blog post. My goal is to put out a blog every day. when my dad's out there, I'm going to make him write the blog sometimes.
Nice.
But for the most part, I'm going to try and do some writing every day. I did this when I was traveling just to kind of get in the zone of practicing doing a blog, and I wrote just in the notes app on my phone what it would have been for that day. And that's kind of like a half an hour activity, it turns out. So that's what I'll do first. And the second thing is I'm going across the country. I want to meet people across the country. Yeah. I've lived only on the East Coast. I've spent a little bit of time on the West Coast, but I have not spent any time at all in the middle of America. I was going to call it Central America, but that's confusing. And, my goal is just to get out there, meet some people, meet the bikers coming through, who obviously are coming from all over the place, but that's an awesome community I'd love to be a part of. Talk to the Warm Showers host. If there's a bar in town, go to the bar, talk to some of the locals. Like, I am an introvert at heart, so that's going to be hard for me, but that's half the reason I'm doing this, is to get out there and see America. I've seen New York City, I've seen Atlanta, I've seen, parts of California. I've never seen America.
Yeah.
So getting out there.
You're gonna see it, man.
Oh.
by the inch.
Yeah, by the end of it, I'm done with America. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I think I've done down the coasts, on the Pacific coast, but like it's amazing stitching together these various communities along the way. I think you're going to learn so much. It's going to be great. Yeah.
I'm so excited. I mean, just the difference between when I lived in Atlanta and when I lived in New York City and when I lived in Norfolk, Virginia. Mm-hmm. Put the three of those together and it's like, these don't even seem like the same country.
Right. But there are things that link those three places.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
You're going to find the same thing. You're going to be in the quietest, most remote corner of Missouri, somewhere in the Ozarks, and you're going to be like, oh, this reminds me of what it was like in Kentucky or in Virginia or whatever. I was going to
say, and somehow when I be in Kentucky or there's places in Virginia, I'd be like, this reminds me of New York City in this very small way. These are clearly very different places, but I can see it still.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, just super excited to see that part.
That's awesome.
And then I think the third thing I'm going to do is I'm a pretty big reader. So I've got a Kindle with me, cool. And a library card. So I will be downloading books at, gas stations or wherever I can get a little bit of Wi-Fi, McDonald's, whatever it may be, and spending time in my tent just reading.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to that part. Part of this trip is supposed to be a break, is supposed to be a vacation of sorts. So I'm excited to maybe lay down in the hammock if I don't send it home. And do a little bit of reading.
Cool. That's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I think you're well prepared. I hope that this has been at least a little bit helpful for you.
Incredibly helpful. Thank you.
The feedback I've gotten from the listeners has been really great. And so your learning has helped other people learn too. So you should give yourself a pat on the back for that as well. But I'm like super stoked for you to take this trip on. You've got some Pedalshift stickers to throw on your bike, and also call in to the voicemail hotline, whatever that is. I always forget it, but I say it on top of every show. Check in and let us know how you're doing. Would love to hear how
Definitely.
It's going.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this has been awesome for me, and if people have taken anything from this, that makes me really happy, because that was part of the plan. Like, I've learned so much from this podcast, I'd love to give anything back, so that's great, and I'd love to keep talking to you.
Sweet. And one more plug for your website, especially so people can follow along and also support your ride if they are so inclined.
Definitely. The website is rideforkora.com. That's RIDE for FOR Kora, KORE.com. Everyone should go check it out because Jesse did some incredible work on it. It's now completely different. He changed the color scheme around, added a whole bunch of pages. It's awesome. And I think, again, just me wanting to give back to the show. Anybody that puts in the name section for a donation and puts Pedalshift, definitely getting a postcard mailed straight to them immediately.
Right on.
And feel free to reach out if, as we talked about, you've done the ride before and there are places you want, a knick-knack from or a postcard. Would love to hear from you guys.
Cool. Yeah. So reach out and follow along there. I've got a link in the show notes, pedalshift.net/116 for all of that. So, James, thanks so much for coming by. Thanks so much for being part of the series, and good luck on your ride.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Tim. Really appreciate it.
As I mentioned, James has already started riding as I sit here recording this, and he's gotten off to a good start. He's had a few interesting things that always seem to happen at the beginning of your tours. So I would invite you to go check it out at rideforkora.com. That's ride for FOR spelled out. Kore is KORE.com. And he's got some pictures on there. He's talked about his first warm showers experiences and a few other things with the ride as it's been going on. So go check that all out. We'll be hopefully in touch with James through his ride. I told him call the voicemail hotline whenever he gets a chance. I want to thank James Rosenberg once again for taking the time and the effort to not only do this great ride that he's doing for charity, but to share his questions, his anxieties, perhaps a little bit with us on the show, because I mean, that's kind of a I will say a gutsy thing, if you will, to kind of open yourself up like that and be a little bit more public about it. So go check out his tour. He's a really good guy, and it was really awesome to sit down with him. And we like to end off the show, as always, with a big thank you to the supporters of the show, who are members of the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $1, $2, $5 a month. Helps with the cost of hosting the podcast and the website. You can do it for a bit and cancel anytime. One-shot support is welcome as well. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Ethan Georgi, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lien, Andrew MacGregor, Michael Hart, Josiah Matthews, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrance Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorski, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Brian Hren, Mark Van Raam, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, Paul Culbertson, Scott Culbertson, Matt Perry, Danielle Jepson, Cody Flortinger, Tom Beninati, Bobby Rupel, Roy Everett, Greg Braithwaite, John Mayer, William Cairns, Sandy Pizzio, Derek Wagner, Richard Patch, and thanks also to all anonymous and past contributors for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.